Now with bait casters, I prefer using a braided line. So when we go ahead and respool this, we're going to go ahead and use our braided line here. I'm using a 15-pound braided line because I usually use my bait caster with lures, so I usually have harder strikes and a little bit more action on there. Any brand will do, but this is the brand I prefer best for myself. So you can see here, this is what a bait caster looks like when the line's getting a little too down the spool. And line can be lost on all kinds of ways, just from being snapped off to forgetting to release the line before you try to cast and snapping off that way. There's lots of different ways. It can also just be that over time the braided line will get old, and as you start to see the color of the braided line fade, this usually means that the line is becoming too brittle and you want to try to change it up with some fresh line. And all you do is you just kind of set your drag all the way to 0 so it doesn't engage, and just go ahead and pull all that line off. There's no way to take off the spool from a bait caster without completely disassembling it. So there you go, I have a last bit of string, and all I have to do is cut that knot holding onto the spool. Now when you put your new line on, you need to make sure you go through this eyelet that goes back and forth, spooling the line across the spool. If you don't, you're going to be in a lot of headache. So if you have one of those, make sure you put your line through that before tying the knot. There's no trick of getting around this one. If you forget to do it, you're going to have to cut the line and restart over. It may take a couple tries to get it through, but once you do, hold it in place and then pull it all the way through the other side. You want to pull enough excess in so you can push it through the spool like this to make your knot. Now on these bait casters, because you have these holes here that grip onto it, I usually just do a simple kind of overhand knot. Because honestly, if you get all the way down to the spool like that with a fish, it's most likely going to snap you off no matter what knot's there. Once I have it cinched down, I'm just going to go ahead and cut that tag line off so there's no excess flying around, anything to get caught up in the gears or anything like that. Once you have it cut away, you just need to keep the tension on one end of the line like before. Reset your drag to engage the spool. And then slowly start. As you can see, the eyelet's going back and forth. And as it does that, it's going to cross the line so it goes at an even pace all the way across like that. As you can see, my other hand's keeping the tensions as just as if I was reeling in through the water. You don't want to leave it just really loose and all that, otherwise your spool is going to be very kind of knotted up and cause a lot of bird's nests. Bird's nest is any time the line gets too tangled up and gets all caught up around the spool or around the tips of your rods. Here you can see the finished product once we have enough line and it's all the way up to almost the brim. And that's really all there is to putting line on a bait caster. In this module, we're going to cover fishing knots. Our first fishing knot we're going to cover is our polymer knot, which is used mostly for anything from a regular fish hook to a drop shot, and it's really simple.